Dr. Mark Angizi here with your Science Moment. Today I'm going to talk about motorcycles and music. Get a copy of my new book. It's still, the physical copies aren't yet available on Amazon. The ebook is, but the physical copies are available at Barnes & Noble. Motorcycle Mind. It's on the cognitive science, on the science of the experience of the motorcycle. And, you know, it's a whole thing that's completely unlike driving, and I try to explain from a scientific perspective, cognitive science perspective, exactly why it is that way. And I'll cover different angles of it, you know, and I've covered some here in the Science Moment series. But there's one of the interesting things about a motorcycle, and you know, I have earlier books on the origins of music, so I thought a lot about music and you know, visual stimuli and auditory stimuli, and this book sort of is a culmination of all of these years of thinking about this. But one of the interesting things about motorcycles is that although in a car, the first thing I would want to do is turn on the radio. Right? It's super boring in a car. You want to have the radio on, and often sometimes it's nice to have the radio jive with the kind of car experience you're having. So if you're suddenly going really fast on the highway, you want certain kinds of music that fits that. But on a motorcycle, it never even occurs to me that I want music. Now, of course, there's always certain kinds of folks that have these motorcycles and they like to drive through the downtown and they blast the music. That's a whole thing. I get it. But that's more of a social signaling. They like to do that around other people. You know, I get that. But unlike in a car where I want the music on all the time, on a motorcycle, it never occurs to me to have the music on. And I started to ask myself, why is it that I don't even think about having music when I'm on a motorcycle? And it's not like I'm on the highway going so fast most of the time. Most of the time I'm just in the city. I could perfectly well hear a radio if I had one on a bike. And I think you have to understand this. You have to understand that music itself culturally evolved to sound like a mover, a human mover moving evocatively in your midst. And that was the topic of my third book, Harnessed, How Language and Music Mimic Nature and Transform Ape to Man. Music, even though the composers aren't consciously thinking about this, they're testing their auditory recognition of other humans. We have visual recognition systems for emotional expressions on other humans, but we also have auditory recognition systems that are designed to hear what other movers are doing, what their gait is, the direction of movement that they're going on, how close they are, which direction they're moving relative to you in terms of directly looming towards you or versus having passed you. All of the emotion on the basis of their specific gait or their specific rhythm. You have auditory systems that are exquisitely designed for this, and music, despite the composers not knowing this per se, their bones know it, and so they create music which has evocative sounds of human movers. Now, when you're in a car, you're not hearing the sounds of movement when you're in a car because your windows are closed, and so you basically hear none of your own movement. And whereas on a motorcycle, you're hearing the reflections of yourself, of the motor itself is reflecting across all the stationary objects in your environment. It's reflecting off, and you hear it coming back to you. You're not consciously aware of this when you're riding a motorcycle, but as you move through the world, you're getting these reflections, these echolocations all around you. So if you suddenly go into a tight tunnel, it feels totally different than when you're out on the expanses. And when you pass certain cars, you can hear yourself, and you know that you're close because you're hearing not only them, but you're hearing your own reflection. Again, you're not consciously thinking this through. You just hear it, feel it, and react to it. You are getting the sounds of evocative movement, the evocative movements of you, the motorcycle. And of course, you are also evoking emotions based on your ability to have manual transmission, which allows you to have the full space of motion, something else that we've talked here. You are hearing yourself when you're on a motorcycle. Your evocative self, you are hearing in the reflections of the world around you, not to mention the direct sounds of the evocative engine just coming straight toward you without reflecting off things. And so I think that the reason you don't feel the need to want to put music on is because you are your own music when you're riding a motorcycle. And that was your Science Moment. Again, if you haven't gotten a copy of Motorcycle Mind, get a copy today. Go to Barnes & Noble. You can get any of the varieties of instantiations of the book that are available.